I've been trying to avoid making any new content or focusing on my channel for the past 7 months, more likely due to the fact that I was focusing on my education at the time and finding employment or any other productivity for the summer, and given how I don't have much time left before I begin the next semester, I reflected on how I did not meet those goals in finding a summer job at all, especially after applying to countless internships on Handshake and being ghosted by the SYEP after applying. So I basically did nothing at all, other than get a bunch of new Steam games during the summer sale and even working out a bit after getting my gym membership back. But as a fellow New Yorker, I feel like it's important to address this to my audience and friends who might live in the Big Apple like me as soon as I can, because not only are we approaching the end of summer and the return to school, but we are also progressing closer towards the general election for the mayor of New York City. Now, I'm not a politics guy. I don't usually do political content on this channel, unless if it affects a certain industry, like the entertainment or animation one in general. I mean, if you want to count my review on the new NERM as political, go right ahead. But I feel like I have a duty to tell you this even as a content creator in New York City. When it comes to living in the city like you and I do, we have to acknowledge the responsibility we uphold when it comes to selecting a new leader for it. And that choice we make can either impact the city we live in for the better or worse. And for this election for that certain leader, we are provided with 4 unique choices who compete for the top spot to be the next mayor of New York City: Zohran Mamdani, the socialist who won the Democratic primary; Andrew Cuomo, the loser of the Democratic primary who switched to being independent so he can still be on the ballot; Curtis Sliwa, the only man who ever showed up to represent the Republican Party; and Eric Adams, our current mayor who is gunning for re-election. As someone who was born and raised in Queens, and given my experience on living in New York my entire life throughout the terms of several mayors and governors, I think my choice is clear on who the next mayor of our city should be, and I'm pretty sure you know the right choice too. And it's definitely not Andrew Cuomo. If you happen to be voting for the next mayor in November, chances are you're going to have to deal with voting for one out of the 4 candidates to be the next mayor of our city. It may seem like a challenge first, but it's practically simple on deciding who you vote for to be the next mayor of the 5 boroughs. And to narrow it down, you shouldn't vote Cuomo. And there are some pretty good reasons why. Also, expect the most minimal of editing since this isn't really a big video I want to dedicate my time and passion working on. So don't expect that much editing in the video. It also won't be covering topics as deeply as the other ones. If you're not into politics or used to seeing this type of content that differs from the other videos of my channel, then skip it. Do not watch this video if you're subscribed to me and don't expect politics on my channel. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy hearing my stance on Andrew Cuomo and my reasons why I don't support him through this background footage of me playing the Deadpool video game, which I now legally own on Steam and 100%ed all achievements on. Do not ask me how much money I spent on a Steam key for this. Now I am going to say what needs to be said. Andrew Cuomo is a piece of shit. The man pumps way more funds into advertising his campaign that propagandizes how he's done so much good for the state that makes him qualifiable to be mayor of our city, when in reality he never did. He actually fumbled the bag hard in being the governor, especially during the pandemic, in which he never took accountability for his poor leadership by allowing COVID-19 patients to be admitted into nursing homes, putting the lives of the elderly at risk in terms of their vulnerability to the virus, resulting in 12,000 fucking deaths of nursing home residents and staff due to how careless and incompetent Cuomo and his team were to properly think before they act. Even trying to downplay the situation by assuming the casualty rate goes towards the staff rather than the patients and residents themselves. He hasn't even consulted with the CDC at all before making the call in the first place. He tried to cover it up, especially with his recent bid for mayor, in an effort to keep the deaths a secret. But we all knew what went down, and given the preservation efforts of New York's history, the Big Apple will never forget what Andrew has done. On top of that, he screwed over the whole economy during the time as governor, making all the wrong choices and blame it on anyone or anything other than himself for it. As a Democrat, Cuomo vowed to make housing more affordable when he did the polar opposite and contributed to the market's inflation. In addition, Cuomo is known to be a very corrupt person. Now, I don't really want to pin the entire blame on the whole nepotism situation with Andrew in terms of his corruption allegations, even though he is technically a Nepo baby, in which his dad Mario was also the governor and his brother Chris worked at CNN. I mean, there are a lot of idiots back at CNN and New York Times that still defend Cuomo to this day, brushing off his allegations. But when I'm talking about how corrupt this guy is, I'm talking about serious, real corruption here. The man takes a lot of bribes from his donors and even from an energy company at one point in favor of them to put their hands in Cuomo's projects. Like a lot. Andrew Cuomo doesn't deserve the title to be the mayor of New York City. I mean, sure, he was born and raised in Queens, but he shouldn't be the mayor because he wasn't made to serve for the people. He was made to serve those who bought and paid for him. He's kind of like that 67-year-old Italian hooker you find in the alley of the Democratic Party in the gritty city of politics. But thankfully, Cuomo never stood a chance to be a mayor as opposed to being the governor of New York, because he was beaten in the Democratic primary by socialist Zoran Mamdani. Now, I'm not a socialist. I mean, sure, I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm technically a capitalist. I don't care how you make your money or how much you make, which is why I'm playing the Deadpool game in the background, for which I bought for an amount of money I refuse to disclose with the power of capitalism. And I have ranked Brad Lander as my first option, and Zoran as my fifth, completely excluding Cuomo from my choices, and that's because I believed Brad Lander was a more experienced and qualifiable candidate than Cuomo and Mamdani, as I thought Zoran was a bit too young and inexperienced to take on the role as the mayor, and that Cuomo is a piece of shit. Brad Lander was the city's comptroller and definitely had good plans to fix the public transportation and budget. So I had high hopes about him becoming the mayor because he looked like he had the chance to. But nonetheless, I'm not a socialist, and I'm not a huge fan of Zoran Mamdani. But he was destined to win anyway because everybody in the city didn't want to deal with Cuomo's ass again after fumbling the bag as governor. So I may vote for him in the election or something. I don't really know. He looks like he's the only sensible one keeping democracy alive right now, despite looking like Agent Stone from the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. The resemblance is uncanny, but I guess it's fair because Agent Stone was one of my favorite characters in the trilogy. But when you compare Mamdani's lifestyle to Cuomo's, you'll find that Zoran is a bit more of a humble New Yorker than him. Even if it's true that Zoran has only been in the city for 7 years after coming to America from Uganda, you can't deny the fact that Zoran Mamdani had more humble beginnings as a New Yorker than Cuomo. Because most New Yorkers who came here were immigrants from other countries and didn't have a lot of money, or make a lot of it neither, to live as much of a comfortable lifestyle as Cuomo did, hailing from his family's inheritance and being a Nepo baby and all. Now, I live in a house in Queens, so I never lived in an apartment before, but I do know for sure that my mom did when she came to America as a kid, as her family was poor and sought low-income jobs. And I also know very well that rent is not that cheap as it used to be in the 5 boroughs anymore. In fact, it's actually gotten pretty expensive. And nothing pisses me off more than how Cuomo is downplaying with how much Mamdani pays for rent in his apartment just to prove a point. I say this because Andrew Cuomo's mayoral campaign often includes bashing Mamdani for being a socialist and being a bad pick for the Democrat Party. A lot! Andrew never stops shit talking about how Mamdani is a communist, when in reality he practically follows many of the principles of democracy that deserves him a spot in the party, even if they call him a socialist and shun him for it. But saying it alone just doesn't make Andrew Cuomo any different from those weak Democrats who are afraid to do shit or the Republican Party in general. Zohran Mamdani doesn't even live as high of a lifestyle as him. He lives in a rent-controlled apartment for $3,200 a month in Astoria, Queens. Now, Astoria, Queens is a nice neighborhood that even I would consider upscale. But come on, dude. You say you'd do a better job lowering the rent than Mamdani when you yourself literally live in a Manhattan apartment for an annual $90,000 a year. Compared to how much you pay to live here, Mamdani would be paying $38,400 annually for his apartment in Queens, while your calculated cost of your living space sums up to be $7,500 a month, Andy. Saying that Mamdani will make housing unaffordable because he's simply a socialist won't be any meaningful because you live in a place that's like 2.5 times more expensive than this. And that says a lot coming from a man who gets their money from other rich guys and spends it all on trying to cover up allegations. So as the story goes, Mamdani beats Cuomo in the Democratic primary, but Cuomo isn't having it. Instead of taking the L and moving on to something more worthy of his time, like retirement, he signs himself up to be an independent so he can be on the final ballot, thinking this is his last shot at being the mayor of the city. It sounds like a smart idea to salvage what you had left of your failed campaign and turn those lemons into an opportunity to be mayor again. But it's actually the dumbest power move he could think of ever doing. New York is a very left-leaning state, and I don't bother with that. I really don't. Even I don't think the only Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa, might have a shot at it. But let's be real here. Along with nobody caring about independence, giving the only successful one in the nation being Bernie Sanders, how are you going up against somebody who had a higher popularity of voters than you in the Democratic candidate race, and still see your opponent have a higher polling average than you while on a different party? I don't care if you're in second place in front of Adams and Sliwa. You still look like an ass choosing this route of independence. Hell, just recently, Cuomo started seeking assistance from Trump to somehow help him win the election. Really? You love Trump now? What the hell happened to the fact that you are the Democratic governor of New York, that you originally ran for the Democratic primary in NYC's election? So I guess just because Cuomo got mad that a hip young socialist is leading the Democratic Party instead of him means that he'll just side with Trump to defeat him, huh? Well, it won't work if you side with someone who was best friends with a pedophile. I mean, imagine claiming you stand for the people when you literally try to sell yourself out to Donald Trump in hopes of defeating Mamdani. You and Trump are two of the most hated people in our state. And I'm not pro-Trump. Seriously, I may not be a socialist, but I am definitely not pro-Trump. If you want the reason why, check out the new NERM review on my channel, linked below in the description. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cuomo's on the Epstein list like the Orange Man was. And that finally leads us to the biggest factor of Andrew Cuomo's shitty reputation: his sex abuse scandals. We're talking about sexual assault, harassment, and abuse shit here. The whole Weinstein enchilada Andy has consumed during his time in office as governor. The man has multiple allegations against him, such as groping an aide, forcefully kissing a girl without consent, touching a female state trooper inappropriately, and more notably, asking to play strip poker with a former aide.
A former Cuomo aide, Lindsey Boylan, says she and the governor were on a state plane in 2017 when he told her, "Let's play strip poker."
Strip fucking poker. All of that eventually became the springboard to Cuomo's resignation as governor of New York. They never really batted an eye with how Cuomo got over 10,000 killed in COVID-contaminated nursing homes, but draw the line at the SA allegations, and I'm not gonna argue about that. They really are damning, especially the strip poker one, for which I will forever know Andrew Cuomo's legacy by. That one will never leave my head, and it will stay rent-free. It always makes me think that the first thing he'll do as mayor is legalize a strip poker and make it a recreational sport to play in public parks. You can't play poker naked in public, so yeah, Cuomo is your average pig, and to think his campaign trying to cover up his history of walking in Harvey Weinstein's shoes will work somehow is dumb, because we all know those allegations because they were major reasons why he resigned in disgrace from governor in the first place. Now, if you really want to take part in the tradition and go vote, but don't want to choose between a socialist or that piece of shit Cuomo, then don't even bother voting at all. I mean, you could go ahead and vote for Curtis Sliwa, even if they'll never let him win. Curtis is an interesting person. He may be loud and weird, and always wears that beret wherever he goes, but he does have a history with founding the city's biggest subway crime-stopping vigilante groups, the Guardian Angels, and he doesn't use his platform to constantly advertise Donald Trump. He's just simply there for the people, even if it's not willing to elect another Republican in years. I'd say he'd make a decent Rockefeller Republican if they were still around. I mean, the guy loves his cats and all he ever does is seriously talk about subway safety. I'd probably vote for him if I wasn't forced to side with Trump when I switch political parties. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not conservative. I am left-leaning. I'm not that woke, but I have some ideals that differ from the alt-right bullshit, in which keeps me blue, and I think genocide is bad. And for the sake of the Big Apple, I might vote for Zoran on November, but I felt like Curtis would have been a better mayor than Eric Adams, who's also on the ballot as independent in a joint effort with Cuomo to destroy Mamdani, but it will never work because we already witnessed how much Adams severely fucked up the city as mayor too. Eric Adams is also a candidate to avoid re-electing for mayor and an independent along with Andrew Cuomo. Unironically, he's basically Andrew Cuomo but black. And I say this because the man has garnered a lot of corruption and bribery. Hell, he's not even a Nepo baby in how he got the role as mayor. He's a Nepo daddy, literally giving anybody the role to be the head of the Department of Poop Shit to his close friends and family members instead of trusted individuals with experience. I mean, nepotism aside, how is this guy so damn corrupt? He was literally a cop and borough president before becoming the fucking mayor. Well, there are a ton of examples of him doing shady shit you can find online, including a recent incident where one of his aides gave a reporter a potato chip bag full of cash. I'm not joking. A bag of hers, sour cream, and onion chips, filled with cash! Why don't I get a chip bag full of money like she did? I'm a journalist. I make content as a critic. Where the hell is my potato chip bag full of money for my effort? I sure as hell am hungry right now. And another thing, why the hell hers? I get it's a bodega classic like Wise Snacks and Lay's potato chips, but why couldn't it be something more native to the state? Like Hal's. Hal's makes the best kettle-cooked potato chips there is to date. Hers is just a staple in Pennsylvania and serves its business best at Wawa stations. Hal's is a true staple in New York delis. I grew up with Wise Snacks deli-wise, but this is unbelievable, man! And among that, I should probably mention Eric Adams' most useless interventions when it comes to controlling our city's budget, like street signs for our basketball team that sucks, and more notably the so-called trash revolution when he rolled out new trash cans and futuristic bubbly plastic dumpsters. Well, newsflash, nobody cares about your fancy trash cans, you bald retard! Because seriously, what sense of pride do you get from managing the city when you use our tax money to dump trash while listening to the beat of Jay-Z in front of the press? It doesn't make you look cool. New Yorkers don't want to have the city be entirely known as the garbage city. Okay, well, it technically is. But we want it to be known for way more than that. In terms of the demographic, culture, and environment, the thing is that you can't keep spending money on temporary fixes or useless interventions that won't stick around for long. You need to correctly target the actual problems and flaws the city has, and negotiate with the people or council to find a good way to curb them for the better. We get you want the city to keep being innovative and advance ahead of our time, but these dumb ideas won't appeal to almost anybody you survey their opinions on improving the city for, and they won't entirely work neither, meaning you won't get vastly different results every time you waste our city's budget for some cheap trick we didn't ask for. I mean, what difference does it make when I do it? Surely nothing special happens to me when I also record myself pulling out a bin and dumping garbage in it. Stop dropping my camcorder, viewer. That thing was expensive. Now get up. So yeah, if I were to vote in the election because it's my duty as an American citizen too, I'd probably choose Zoran as my first choice, and maybe Curtis Sliwa as my second. Frick Cuomo and Eric Adams all the way. They're two of the Big Apple's biggest pieces of shit, and I should probably end the video here. But before I end this video, let me just reiterate again that I'm definitely not a politics channel. I don't usually like talking about politics on this channel. I'm not like Destiny or Hassan or The Quartering or even Ethan Klein or Vosh. I'm absolutely nothing like them as a commentary YouTuber and reviewer, and it's not my right to tell you my political opinions and whether to side with them or not. I am not pro-Trump, but I am not extremely far left neither. But as someone who has experience living in both a city and a state run by two big old dumbasses playing wolf in sheep's clothing as liberals, then let me just say that I'd be proud of living in the city again if dumbasses, especially Andrew Cuomo, did not get the chance to run it again. I have been Bohemius, and have a good day.